Welcome back. On today's episode, I will be discussing the fallout from Knicks defeating the Spurs to win their first title in a very long time. Um, some of my thoughts on the discourse surrounding Wemby and the real disdain people seem to have for the Spurs, where the Knicks fall in terms of some of the better NBA Finals teams over the last century, and why I do not think this is some great team like the 17 Warriors or the 16 Cavs, how some people are discussing. And apparently people think that they are one of the great teams. And then I'll also be discussing and sharing a couple of my thoughts on the World Cup and some of the things I think we've learned so far, and some of the areas where I think Spain needs to be a little concerned following their pretty disappointing draw to Cape Verde. So stay tuned after the break. All right, welcome back. So the Knicks were able to defeat the Spurs on Saturday in Game 5 in a series where I obviously predicted the Spurs to ultimately win. I thought they were going to be able to do a pretty good job of removing some of the role players in the Knicks, like Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby, and make it heavily Brunson-centric. And I thought they're going to be able to wear them down with their elite guard play. They're really good defenders. The problem was, just as it was in basically every other aspect of the series, the Spurs just made really poor decisions. They're really young. They lacked a high enough basketball intelligence to be able to win this series. And Stephon Castle picked up far too many stupid fouls where when he found real success guarding Brunson, especially in like games 3 and 4, where I thought he pretty well took him out of the game, at least in the first half in game 4 and in game 3, he picked up fouls and they weren't able to leave him on Brunson for long enough. Um, and a lot of those fouls were really dumb. He would just shove a 3-point shooter for no reason. He would just go run into a screener. He just picked up fouls you just can't do, especially when you're that important as a player. And that was kind of a microcosm of the bigger problem here of just them doing really dumb things. Uh, I think I was a little surprised. First off, OG Anunoby just played a really great series. I did not think he was going to be that I did not think he was going to make that many 3-pointers. I mean, every single time he touched the ball in the corner, you just assumed the shot was going to go in. Um, I did not really foresee that happening. I thought Cat had just as disappointing of a series as I thought he would. I don't think he was great. He had really great game 1, but outside of that, he did the same stupid Cat things. It looked like he was playing for the Spurs. He picked up some really stupid fouls. At times, his rebounding was a little disappointing, honestly. He didn't have a great perimeter shooting series. Defensively, I thought he did a good job against Wemby, but I think it's honestly less to do with Cat and more to do with the Wemby conversation here of his inability to score one-on-one and create his own shot. I think it's a problem that he's going to have to work on this summer. I think he will. And I think some of the discourse surrounding him acting like, these are some fatal flaws and Wemby's game and that he can't overcome, I think is pretty stupid. He's 22 years old. This typically happens to these really great young players. Jordan had it happen. LeBron had it happen. Really outside of Magic Johnson, these all-time great players, the first finals they get to typically goes pretty poorly. They get beat up. They run into a team with more experience, oftentimes is more physical. And, they kind of need to taste their own blood in order to come back and figure out where they need to get stronger, which I have no doubt he's going to do in the offseason. He needs to improve his mid-range shooting. He needs to have like that Porzingis shot where he can just turn around and shoot over anyone like the 18-foot range. He needs to have a shot, a go-to shot he can create. Right now, everything's dependent on him, setting a ball screen and then trying to get a lob to him. And he's never going to be like a post type of player where you're just going to post him up and he's going to work you down like Hakeem Olajuwon. He's pretty much a perimeter player. So they're going to have to figure out a way. He's going to have to figure out a way of improving his ball handling a little bit in order to get to somewhere in the 18-foot range into a shot where he's not fading away, where he's more comfortable just stepping and knocking it down, because he's an elite free throw shooter, which typically is the best sign that you're going to be a good perimeter shooter. And we're already seeing he's knocking he's shooting mid-30s from 3, so he's already a pretty good shooter, but I think if he can get that a little up into high 30 percentile on his three-point shot, he's gonna be even harder to guard. If he can make some more off the dribble, that'll help, but the biggest thing is he has to improve in the perimeter. He either if you notice, on any of these ball screens, he either pops well behind the three-point line or it's, a roll to the basket for a lob. He never just stops in, like, that 18-foot range where it's always open. Those free throw line jumpers are available basically in every single coverage, a team plays against the Spurs, especially with Dylan Harper coming off the screen, who I'll get to in a minute. But I think going forward, as Dylan Harper pretty clearly, I think is going to be like one of the 7 or 8 best players in the league. I think they have legitimately 2 of the best players in the league, probably maybe even as early as next year, but certainly in 2 years. We're going to see a lot of, ball screens with Wemby and Dylan Harper. And because Harper's such a freak athlete with such great strength and also he's so intelligent, he can play off 2 feet once he gets in the paint. And he might be the best finisher I've ever seen for a guard at his age. You're going to there's going to be so much attention opposing defense is going to have to pay to Harper that if Wemby just stops at the free throw line, he's going to have that shot every single time. And he needs to be able to knock that down. I think that's probably ultimately going to be his best shot. Like every all-time great guy has an area on the court where if they really need a basket, they have a go-to move. And right now, Wemby just doesn't have one. And I think Harper might ultimately be the closer on the team, where if they need a basket when in game 4, when that run was happening, when they were really struggling to score and Knicks were getting hot, I think 2 years down the line, maybe even next year, they're going to throw the ball to Harper and say, go get us a basket. But I think Wemby probably has to at least get a little better at being able to get him decent enough looks that isn't so heavily dependent on other guys getting him into the spots where he can be effective. Because ultimately, in these really pressurized situations with a lot of scheming, a lot of game plan time, where the refs aren't calling a lot of fouls. I mean, Wemby gets fouled more than anyone I've ever seen. That's just going to happen. So it's going to be really difficult to always scheme up good looks for him. At times, he's just going to have to be able to rise up and knock down a shot or maybe work on a jump hook type of thing. I mean, no one can block it. I'd ask Kareem to help me out on that one. I mean, you got to figure out something. He has to have some shot he can get off against any defense, against any defender that you feel pretty comfortable with it going in, or at least you're getting a good look. Because at the end of these games, the Spurs just had no idea what to do. Mitch Johnson, I've complained about his coaching for a while. Obviously, they got the team to the finals, so it's tough to be too critical of him, but I think his timeout usage is abhorrent. I mean, he's so reluctant to call timeouts. In game 4, I pretty much blame him. He let like 6-7 minutes of poor play go by without him calling a timeout when he had timeouts to burn. I don't think he had a great feel for what the series needed, but I also think the players shot the bed here. They didn't have a feel for what the series needed. Steph Castle can't shoot. He shoots with 2 hands basically, so his shooting is very streaky, especially from the perimeter. He's going to have to work on that this summer. He has to at least be a respectable 3-point shooter where you can't completely help off of him, because his only go-to move ultimately is just try to barrel his way to the basket and force up a really tough shot. And some of them went in. He's a hell of a player, and I'm really high on him. I love that guy. I think he had the ball too much, though. I don't think he's a point guard. His ball handling is not good enough. He turns the ball over too much. I think he's more of an off-ball guard. And I'd use him actually as a screener a bit more, because if his shooting isn't where you want it to be and you're worried about him off ball because it'll allow the defense to play off of him and help onto Wemby on a pick and roll on Wemby or something, then have him be a screener. He's a really tough physical guy. You can bring him into use him in movement. He doesn't just have to stay on the corner like PJ Tucker. You can use him in some other way offensively, but he cannot have the ball as much as he does, especially when you have someone like Dylan Harper, who is going to be just an absolute superstar. and clearly needs to have the ball a lot more. Probably is going to be your best closing option or get a bucket late guy on your team. And I think that's a change I want to see this offseason. But as critical as I can be of Mitch Johnson not having a game plan of how to get a shot, ultimately I don't know what he really was supposed to do because Wemby can't create his own shot. Dylan Harper, I think probably would have been able to help you close out one of those games if he had the ball more. Whether if it was game two, maybe game one, maybe game four. I mean, game five, he kind of did have the ball and he missed several of those layups. So maybe it wouldn't have gone that differently if he had the ball more. But I, I just think the players were too young. They didn't know what they wanted to do. They don't really have an identity on offense late in the game when you're not playing in transition and it's not a fluid game up and down where you're getting transition threes and um, when you're coming out of a timeout and the defense has a time to get set and every possession means a lot. I don't really think Spurs know what they wanted to do or know how to get the best shot or know who they trusted the most to get the shot off. They've ultimately went to Wemby a lot, but I don't feel like anyone really was confident in the shots they were able to get for him. So I think they have a lot of work to do this summer. Whether it's coaching, the front office has to make some big decisions about what to do with Fox. The players all have to get better um, and really use this summer to kind of do some soul searching here and figure out what they are individually and who they are as a team. And I think this team, I'm picking them right now to win the finals next year. I I just I'm betting on the competitiveness of Wemby. I think obviously he's a freak athlete, but I also think he's one of the most competitive guys I've seen. I think he's going to bust his ass this summer and get really good and figure out some signature shot for himself this year where you can feel somewhat comfortable with him shooting at the end of the game. I think Dylan Harper will put in a lot of work. He needs to improve his perimeter shooting. I think it will improve. I like his shot. I think he should be a high 30% shooter, which will be huge for him. And especially, I want to see him work on his pull-up shot in the mid-range. Same as Steph Castle here. Even if they're not incredible three-point shooters, they can't just try to barrel their way to the basket every time. They're going to have some floater, some pull-up mid-range shot. That will go a long way. So hopefully they improve there this summer. De'Aaron Fox, I guess now it's time to talk about Fox. I've always been high on Fox. I've always liked him, but I've always thought he had flaws to his game. I, I think he played terribly. There's no doubt. If he played even average De'Aaron Fox basketball, I think they probably would have won the series. I really do. I don't think Knicks are that great of a basketball team. I think Spurs were clearly better. They led in every game. If they had any semblance of an offense at the end of these games, they would have won. But he clearly is banged up with a high ankle sprain. He's 28 now. That's not old, but I do think he was pretty reliant on his athleticism. He's not the freak athlete he was at 22 coming out of Kentucky. He's improved his mid-range shooting. He's the one guy who, when he's right, I actually feel a little comfortable with making some of those mid-range or three-point shots out of the guards they have on the team right now. So I would not trade him this summer because I think you have a better chance of winning the title next year with Fox on your team. You got to hope he gets healthy. He's competitive. I'm sure he's going to go, really put in some work this summer to get better. The decision making was alarming because he's supposed to be the veteran guard on the team to kind of calm everyone down and for the young players to look to for advice. I do not blame the end of game 4 on him. I mean, they played terribly. He shouldn't have. He shouldn't have gone out for that shot. He certainly should not have challenged Anunoby at the rim, who's one of the best defenders in the league. That was stupid, but there were plenty of stupid plays to go around. You cannot blame that all on him. It is going to get harder to trade him because you can't realistically pay Fox the max, Wemby the max, Harper the max, Castle the max. That can't happen. So you're going to have to move off Fox at some point. The older he gets, the harder it's going to be to trade him. You might have to attach picks in any move. You might have to take back bad money or negative contracts in order to move off of him. So that's kind of the catch-22. If you move him this summer, his value is probably a little down, but I think because he's such a talented player, I imagine you'll be able to get something back from him this summer if you decide to move him. What I think you should do is bank on him getting healthier, having a big offseason, going into next year. I think you have to start Harper. I think Vassell made it clear that Harper's not happy with his play time last year and how he was used and some of his minutes being yanked around and his lack of ball time, having the ball in his hands at the end of these games. So you're going to have to, I think, start him and build this team around him and Wemby. But I think you go to a 3-guard lineup. You either drop Vassell probably to the bench because you probably want Champagne's size, or maybe Champagne goes to the bench. But I think next year you just start the 3 guards. And I think they probably win the title or get damn close to. And then after the end of next season, you hope Fox had a good year, and then you can move off him. Maybe his value is a little higher than this year because if he has a good year next year, he'll only be 29. He won't yet hit 30. I could see a poorly run franchise or a desperate franchise giving up real assets to go get Fox because, you do need talent. And if he is certainly a very talented guard, he has experience. If they just won a title, he'd be trading a title-winning point guard. I think that's probably the move. I'd wait till next offseason to trade Fox before you have to get fully in the middle of this really gnarly max contract where you're going to be paying him $50 million a year. I just don't think you can really justify doing that when you're already going to have to pay Wemby. He's going to be eligible for the rookie max next. Starting this offseason, you can be able to negotiate with him. Harper still has a couple years, but that's going to be coming due pretty soon. Castle is coming up. I just don't think you're going to be able to pay him $50 million a year when you're going to have to pay these other guys max money too. So next year probably is the year to trade Fox. I think guys like Carter Bryant, I'm really high on him. I think he's going to play better next year. I like his size. I think if he can put on even a couple more pounds of muscle, that'll be big because they need someone who can play kind of small ball and guard a center because Luke Cornett just could not play in these playoffs. And that's weird. I was pretty high on him. I thought he was maybe the best backup big in the whole league. He was unplayable. Every time Wemby was on the court, this is why I still think Wemby's the best player in the league. And I think what he's doing right now is incredible at his age. And all the takes that he's overrated and people criticizing him as the player, I think is insane. His plus minus when he's on the court, he wrecks the opponent's offense. With Wemby on the court, they won this series. The problem is when he was off the court, they lost by 20 points. They were +8 with him on the court. And Luke Cornett just got abused. So I don't know if you have to go find another big. I don't really think there is a better backup big than Cornett. That's the thing. I think he's pretty good in the regular season. He was good in the Minnesota series, I thought. He was pretty good in the Portland series. He was excellent in the Portland series. So I don't really know what you do there. I don't think going to get another big is the answer. I think you got to find a big physical 4 who can shoot a little bit. And maybe that's Carter Bryant in the draft. I think there's some guys top in late. I know he has a torn ACL, but you can look at him maybe. He's not as physical as you'd like, but easily he's big. He can play there. You're probably out of the Yaxel Lendenborg range. Well, past that, he's probably going to go top. I think he's a lottery guy at minimum. So you're not going to be able to get that. I think he would be your perfect player, honestly. You know who I think would be perfect is like a guy like Draymond, and they don't grow on trees, but they need a guy who can they probably want someone who can shoot a little better than Draymond can, but they need a really physical small ball center who can physically match like a Cat or a Jokic or someone like that and let Wemby hover around the rim because it really impacts the opponents when he's able to just stay under the rim, when he doesn't have to worry about individually guarding a center. I thought he actually got better throughout the series at guarding Cat, though, which I will note, and I think he will become a better perimeter defender. At times, Anunoby was able to take him off the dribble and use his quickness. I think Wemby will probably be much better at that next year. I think with his competitiveness, with his intelligence, he understands that's a problem. He has all the physical tools to be better at it. So I don't think that will be as glaring a problem when he has to guard in the perimeter or he's not able to help off a poor 3-point shooter and just stand to the rim to clean anything up and basically be a deterrent for anyone to drive or ever attempt a layup against him. Uh, but they do need someone who's little better at holding down the fort in these big playoff series, basically against the Thunder. And I think Giannis is probably going to be a Celtic, which is another conversation to have. But if Giannis is the Celtic, I think that will probably be the winner in the East. Basically, in a Thunder Celtic series, the big series, you're going to need someone when Wemby's off the court to hold down the fort better than Cornette did. You can't lose as badly as they did in the Cornette minutes. I thought they probably could have gone small a bit more than they did. I thought Carter Bryant at times was pretty good. I mean, he was young. He's a rookie. He picked up stupid fouls, but he's a really physical, athletic guy. I would have given him more opportunities. I would have played smaller than they did. I didn't think they always had to have a center on the court. They have really good rebounding guards. So they gave up some offensive rebounds to Cat and the Knicks, but Knicks they fought really hard and they played well. So I don't think the rebounding's a problem for the Spurs. So I don't think they really have to have a big on the court at all times, given how well they rebound for basically at every spot, at every position on the court. They're an above average rebounder, if not a great rebounder. Like Harper might be the best rebounding point guard like in a long time. He's phenomenal. Offensive rebounds, he gets in there. They just do a lot of the dirty work really well. They're stars. So that's encouraging, just like the old Spurs. That seems like that's just what the franchise does. They have guys who are superstars, but are willing to put in the hard work and do the stuff no one wants to do. Um, so I remain really high on the Spurs. I think they are the team to beat next year. I really do. I think they'll improve. Um, they might they might need another shooter. I would consider going after Hachimura from the Lakers in the offseason. They should have some money to spend there. I would, or they can at least make some moves in order to have money to spend. I'd consider throwing him some money. They're already an elite defensive team. I think they can kind of protect his poor defense. He's also not a great rebounder, but they have good rebounders. I think they need a guy who's just a knockdown 3-point shooter. He's also quite good. If there's a hard closeout, he's able to put the ball on the floor and finish in the 15-foot range. He's a good mid-range shooter. I think Hachimura would be pretty perfect for what the Spurs need here. I also think he's a bigger body. He can kind of hold up against some of those centers and small number of minutes in the playoffs too, where you could maybe use him as a small five at times, not consistently, but he can survive those minutes, I think. But also the Spurs really did a disservice to Wemby with how they used him this season. I understand limiting his minutes in the first half of the season, but you had to build up his endurance over the second half. You can't play him 30 minutes in March. That doesn't work in the postseason. There's going to be some games where he's going to have to play 40 minutes. And part of that's on him. He's a big guy. He's young. His endurance will get better, I'm sure. You saw Curry's endurance get a lot better. LeBron, all the great players, their endurance gets better throughout the years because they understand they're going to have to play big minutes. But the Spurs didn't do everything I thought they needed to do in order to prepare this team to win a title. And him playing 30 minutes a game in March was a problem because he was exhausted midway through the third quarter in these games. And they need him to, with how impactful he is. I mean, he's the greatest defensive player ever. I mean, the numbers are the numbers. When he's on the court, the teams can't score. And when he's off the court, it's just up and down, attack the basket every single time. And the offense is flying. for the opponents. So he has to be on the court more, a lot more, and he has to be productive and not like sucking air immediately and missing free throws at the end. I don't think he choked or like he's mentally weak. I think he's exhausted. You could see it in the free throws. He short armed it. He didn't have the legs to finish those free throws. He was so tired. He made like one jump shot in the fourth quarter in like the last 3 games. He just did not have the energy to do it. So they have to work on his endurance this summer and figure out. I mean, now that they're a real championship team, they need to figure out these small tweaks in order to get the job done. But I think they're well ahead of schedule. Um, as far as the criticism he's getting from Knicks fans for like the dirty play on Brunson and everything, um, you know, I love Wemby. I think he's awesome. I think he's really smart. I think he's well spoken. I think he's a cool guy. I like him. I think he's phenomenal. I think he gets fouled more than like any player I've ever seen. I understand why he loses his mind. They grab his arms on every single rebound attempt. Whenever he goes to the basket, they just shove him in the air. He gets fouled all the time. I don't mind it when players get mad and hit the opponents for doing stupid things. Kareem did it. I loved that when that happened. Um, I don't like the big guys do not get the same whistle as the small players. I mean, Brunson's falling all over the ground every single time and he's getting the foul calls. So I think basketball is the game for big. I think the sport belongs to big physical Greek gods, not little, small, 6-foot guards. Basketball should be the sport of big physical specimens that, no one. I think basketball should be the sport for this physically superior people. And I didn't mind the no call on Jalen Brunson. I thought it was kind of funny. Uh, Brunson's all over the ground every single time. His daddy's over there trying to start a fight with all the opponents. Like, what the fuck are you going to do? You got your ass beat. I find the Knicks to be one of the more annoying teams. I can't stand Jalen Brunson, I'll be honest. I've always had a problem with small guards. I just don't think basketball should be a sport for the small guards. I like it when there's big physical play. I think it's the sport belongs to the big men or wings. Um, I, I don't know. I was happy that they didn't call that on Wemby. Uh, I, I just think guards get the game's just completely officiated in the direction for the point guards. They get all the calls. You can't grab them on the perimeter, but on the inside, you can get elbowed in the face and there's no call. They called a flagrant on Wemby in game 4, actually, for that elbow to Cat. And the same worse elbow, Mitchell Robinson elbowed him in the face in game 5. I think his mouth was bleeding. It was so hard. I, I just think it's ridiculous. The idea that somehow the league is favoring Wemby here. And of course they're favoring stars. They're going to find ways not of suspending stars. Any Knicks fan who was trying to root for Wemby getting suspended for game 6, assuming there was a game 6 after that flagrant that should have been called by the rules when his foot got underneath Jalen Brunson's foot. I mean, Jesus, guys, you didn't want to play against a fully healthy Spurs team? You had to bitch to the refs because his like size 24 shoe got underneath your guard's foot on the 3-point attempt. That's going to happen the rest of his career. His limbs are so long, he's always going to end up getting underneath players' feet on those 3-point attempts. Sometimes when he's just turning around, since his arms are so long, they're going to get hit in the face. It's just going to happen. We're going to be in, if people are going to react this way every single time Wemby's playing and there's some contact for the next like 10, 15 years, then it's going to be, Jesus, it's going to be the most annoying debates every single night about Adam Silver supposedly protecting Wemby. I'm going to lose my mind. I really am. And by the way, New York, this is the most pathetic thing ever. LA, they don't get out of bed for anything less than a championship. Okay, Boston, your rivals, they don't get out of bed for anything less than their back-to-back championships. You guys haven't won in forever. You're burning the city down. You're one of the 5 most important franchises in the league. This is embarrassing and pathetic. You're acting like the Cubs fans in 2016. Okay? It's embarrassing you haven't won 6 titles in this time, seriously. So, grow up. Congrats for winning your 1 title in my lifetime. I don't even think you're gonna be in the East. You're not gonna win the East next year. Uh, and this is not some all-time great finals team. I'm sorry. I don't like it when you do the "who did you play" and try to discredit the championship team. People are saying that this is, like, the best team to win the East in, like, this century. That's insane. This is not that great of a team. They got hot. The Spurs gave away the series by being too young, which counts. Credit to the Knicks. They fought back every game. They were extremely well coached. I thought Mike Brown did a very good job. I've always been high on him. I'm happy for him. I thought he did a good job. He played his bench. He made big calls and big moments, like having Alvarado on the court at the end of game 4 instead of Bridges, who was terrible, for quite frankly, most of the series. Uh, Credit to them. I thought they did a good job. They got hot. They had guys knocking down threes who will be playing in China next year. Um, uh, it's a really impressive run, but this is not the 16-17 Warriors. This is not the 16 Cavs. This is not even the 24 Celtics. Um, I don't think this is the 20 Lakers. I don't think this is the 21 Bucks. I, I don't think this is the 23 Nuggets. I think this might be the worst championship team of this decade, quite frankly. And maybe 2019 Raptors, you have an argument there, but Kawhi Leonard is a hell of a lot better than anyone the Knicks have. So, I, congrats. You got a title. It's impressive. Um, you got hot shooting. I think you had a favorable matchup here with the Spurs. They were just too young. They made too many bad mistakes. I think probably even a Thunder team, as banged up as they were, probably would have been able to get over the top here in this next matchup. I think next year the Celtics will be better than the Knicks. So, you got it when you had a chance. That's good because I don't know when it's going to come around again. Uh, and I guess you deserved one. When LA, every single one of their franchises is winning like every year. Boston is winning every other year. Um, Congratulations. I guess you got one. Um, Stay tuned after the break where I'll be discussing some of the things I've learned so far following the World Cup. Welcome back. So, the US obviously had their big opening to the World Cup. I think they played well. This is the most fluid, most attacking quality I've seen a US team have really ever. I think this is the most talented team we've ever had. I think Pochettino's actually a coach who knows what he's doing. He's not force feeding MLS domestic players down our throats, trying to promote a shitty league full of bad players like past coaches have been doing, like Berhalter. That bald idiot should never, ever be anywhere near the national team again. Uh, I think that's encouraging. I still have concerns. I think our back line is shocking. I think Tim Ream, he moves like a semi truck. I think even Australia with their speed up top, it could cause them problems in transition. I don't think Matt Freese is very good in goal. So I have concerns. I think we're gonna give up 4 or 5 goals against a quality team. Um, and I but I'm encouraged by the attack. I think how we played, with the fluidity we played with the creative freedom that we were given. I think we really we should pretty comfortably move on from this group. We should be able to beat Australia, we should beat Turkey, and then we probably should make a run minimum round of 16. I could see even quarterfinals really. Um, Argentina, if you finish second, you're probably going to face Argentina. So later on in the tournament, if you finish first, it's a much more favorable matchup. You probably face Belgium later on. I think you need to finish first, um, which I think they should. So obviously, this game against Australia is going to be big. If they win that, they're extremely well positioned to finish to top their group. I think they will. Um, so that's encouraging. As far as some of the bigger nations who I actually think are real real contenders to win. Spain coming into this tournament, I had some concerns about just because their style of triangle passing, they want possession. They want to pass basically death by a thousand cuts, but it's death by a thousand passes. They want to control the game, move the ball. Um, La Fuente, I thought, added the verticality they probably needed from past generations of Spanish coaches and how they played with just putting the ball in behind, using your speed on the outside, Lamine Yamal and Williams, and using some of your more athletic players and adapting to the modern game a bit better, which is more about physicality and direct play rather than just possession. Uh, so I think they're well coached and I think they're moving in the right direction. But my concern is they still don't have a good striker, which is a problem. Uh, at times, they still fall back in the same pattern of they're way too conservative where they're just going to go with a wide open pass. They're not willing to take many risks putting the ball in behind the back line. Cucurella, their left back, is honestly was their best attacking option against Cape Verde in this first game. He made some good runs at behind. I, I, I just don't. I think later on in this tournament, when they play against a Portugal or a France, and I know they had some success against France, but I thought France did not. They had some weird problems going on in both the Euros 24 and the Nations League last year when Spain were able to beat them both times. I think France is much better this time around. Even England potentially or Brazil, although Brazil has their own problems. I kind of think those teams are going to have more athletic quality going forward. Faster players are going to be more willing to sit in a lower block and absorb pressure and play counterattacking football, which typically works, honestly, at the international level. Where if you're going to let the other opposing team have the ball, sit there, defend well, force a turnover and break out, and you have real quality going forward like France does. I don't like Spain's back line either. I think their center backs are terrible. Kubarsi, I think, is one of the more overrated young center backs in the world. I think he's not a very good athlete either. He's small. I think that's going to be a problem. I just don't think the Spanish team's going to win the World Cup. They're going to face too many teams who are more versatile, have easier. Put it this way, Spain, they look glorious. When they're passing the ball and they cut through you like that, it looks amazing. But there's so much effort for every goal they score. Like France and potentially Portugal and Brazil, just one moment and they can score. They just have individual brilliance where there's one or two touches passing behind the back line. They can just kick it forward and Dembele or Mbappe or Leao or Vinny Jr. or Rafinha, they can just get on the end of it, one pass later, and it's a goal. For France, it's Elise, Doué, Mbappe, Dembele, Barcola, Cherki, Thuram, Mateta. They just have so many players going forward that I think they're just going to be able to. I just do not see Spain winning that matchup. I don't think if Portugal or Spain somehow met up, I don't think that would go Spain's way either. So I think they'll make it out of their group. Them drawing this opening game to Cape Verde is a great story. Obviously, Cape Verde is like one of the smallest nations. I think they're the third smallest nation to ever make it to the World Cup. I'm super happy for them. They defended for their lives and it worked. So congrats to them. But I think Spain will be able to bounce back and still make it out of the group, probably finish first. But I do think it's a little alarming. And I think it reinforced some of the fears some people had about them already, and that they struggle in front of goal. They do not have Lamine Yamal for all of his talent, and some of his passes are phenomenal. He still leaves a lot to be desired in terms of a goal scorer. Mbappe gets a lot of shit from people. A lot of people are criticizing him right now, but you know what he is? He's a damn good goal scorer. He puts the ball in the back of the net. For all of Ronaldo's flaws and people complaining about him, he's the greatest goal scorer ever. He put the ball in the back of the net. And sometimes you just need players like that. And Spain just lacks those goal scorers. that individually can just score in a variety of ways. And at the end of the game, you're going to see their name on the score sheet. Um, but I mean, we'll see. Maybe if they get the right matchup, they can have a chance here. Um, but I do not think they're going to win ultimately. The other big team to play so far that I have some concerns about is Brazil. Everyone was low on Brazil. Obviously, they're not as talented as they once were. They have real problems at the fullback position. In midfield, they're not nearly as talented enough. Igor Thiago up front, he's not nearly good enough to be the Brazil starting nine. But I actually picked them to make a bit of a deep run. I thought Ancelotti would be able to figure it out. Um, and he still might, but I, Brazil's Casemiro's washed in midfield. Paquetá was awful. Their back line isn't as good. Their center back combo isn't as good as I thought it would be. They did seemingly not have great chemistry. I think Allison's one of the more overrated goalkeepers. I don't think he's the same player he was a couple years ago. Vinny was great. Rafinha was great. But I think they're going to have to play like Endrick or someone like that. They need something more going forward. They're going to have to score goals. I do not think they're going to be able to keep clean sheet. Their midfield is awful. It's going to run right through. U.S. might have a better midfield. I mean, shit. Brazil, there's problems there. So that might be one of the first teams where I was just off on. They need to seriously improve. I think they might need Neymar back because they need something in midfield where they're able to control the ball better, ping a pass forward, when escape pressure. If a team's going to, use a high press against them, they're getting carved through in the midfield. And their fullbacks offer nothing going forward. Danilo probably has to play. I think he's probably the best option fullback there because at least be solid defensively, which they weren't even really against Morocco. I'm worried about them. They're really the only two major teams to play so far. And both of them, warning signs there. More negatives than positives, I'd say, for both. But, we'll see what France looks like tomorrow in Argentina. And then on Wednesday, we'll see what Portugal and England look like, the other real contenders there. I think France and Portugal I'm the highest on. England will be interesting. I think they're going to start well, actually, and I think they're going to fade off as the tournament goes on. Argentina, I have real concerns with. I just think they're old. Similar concerns in the midfield. I think some of these guys have a lot of miles on them in midfield. We'll see. I think they'll start well tomorrow, but I think as the tournament goes on, the heat and everything will probably weigh on them as well. But I think it's been a really fun World Cup so far. We're having young stars shine, which is fun. Some of these smaller nations who haven't had a ton of past success are finding success this year. The stadiums have been pretty full, I'd say. I know there's been a couple occasions where the crowds weren't full, but it's felt like a proper World Cup for all the concerns. And there are concerns with our stupid government and everything they're doing to fuck this up. Uh, the thing is, the sport is just still so popular, and there's so much love in the sport that you can't really dim the light of what the World Cup is. It's the World Cup. People are going to watch. It's exciting. People are going to tune in. So that's encouraging. And I thought it's just been really fun. So that's that. Stay tuned Thursday for the next episode, and I'll have more on the World Cup. I'll talk about the big games that have happened. We'll see if the Giannis trade happens. I have some concerns there. We'll see if this Iran peace deal actually happens. I also have some concerns there. So stay tuned. Next episode will be out Thursday. Thank you.